Did science just debunk astrology? A report about a study that just came out has people questioning whether or not astrology exists. And I'm allowed to talk about this because I took part of this study. So let's go ahead and get started talking about it. If you don't know me already, my name is Cam White. I'm a professional astrologer. I've been doing this for over 8 years, and I've literally seen over 2,000 clients. And a person on my Instagram sent me a DM about this study that was done by clearthinking.org. And in this study, and I'm going to go into a little bit, but they said that, people are using the results of this study to debunk astrology. So what she did was she actually sent me a Tumblr link. And so she sent me this link to Tumblr, and this is the graph. We're going to go over the report here in just a second. But this is kind of people talking about it a little bit. And I've only read a little bit about this report. However, I did take a part of the study. And what I really want to do in this video is talk about the results of this study, the problems I had with it, and if people were going to do a study on astrology, what I would say would be different. But long story short, she sent me this Tumblr post, and it says, can astrologers use astrological charts to understand people's characters and lives? Our new study put astrologers to the test. These were essentially the results. I have little experience. I'm experienced amateur. I'm between an amateur and expert. I'm a world-class expert. I think I put that one. And so there's a bunch of people talking shit about astrology and whatnot. There was one interesting comment on here that we'll come back to, but let's go ahead and just read through this together because I want to kind of just give you guys my reaction to each little thing going on here. So hold on, let me fix my screen. Okay, so astrology is very popular. Both Gallup and YouGov reported that 25% of Americans believe that the position of the stars and the planets can affect people's lives, with an additional 20% of people reporting being uncertain about astrology's legitimacy. By the way, if I sound really low energy, I have a fever right now, and I wasn't going to do anything today, but this just came up, and I figured I'll just do a video. So if I'm low energy or I sound annoyed, I feel like garbage right now. Previously, we tested whether facts about a person's life can be predicted using their astrological sun signs, such as Pisces, Aries. A number of astrologers criticized this work, saying that, of course, we found that sun signs don't predict facts about a person's life because that's a baby or tabloid astrology. Real astrologers use people's entire astrological charts to glean insight about them and their lives. And they had a good point. Despite sun sign astrology being popular, most astrologers use entire astrological charts, not merely people's sun signs. Here are some examples of the feedback we received. Blah, 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 you need to do a chart, I'm assuming. Inspired by these critiques, we enlisted the help of 6 astrologers. I don't know who these 6 astrologers are. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to read through this, and I actually want to show you the test that they put out. And I want to go over how it really isn't that good of a system in order to like figure out. And like, don't get me wrong. I think I got 4 out of the 12 right. And like, let me just say right off the bat, it was hard. It was really fucking hard. I thought I was just going to like get through it and glide through it, but it was really difficult. I think it took me about 3 hours, and there was only one chart that I was like, it was just fucking easy. That it was super easy to guess which chart it was, and I'm not sure if I got that one right. I got an email from them. I think they sent me an email in June, or maybe it was May, about, hey, we want you to participate in this. And so and it's like, if you get all 12 right, you get like $1,000. So I was like, you know what, fuck it, that sounds fun. Let me try it. And it was really challenging, and I'll show you why too. But anyway, so I don't know who these 6 astrologers are. However, I think they were, when I was talking to the person that DM'd me, they said, like, do you think this was like, rigged or something? And I don't know if I agree with it. It seemed genuine, in my opinion. It was just not done in a way that I think really proves anything, and I'll show you. But anyway, and with their feedback and guidance, we designed a new test to see whether astrologers can truly gain insights about people's entire astrological charts. If that's true, something. So let's open this up, and let's take the test here in a second. I just want to show you at least one of the questions, because I'll just show you the example, but let's look at the summary of the results. We tested and analyzed the ability of 152 astrologers to accurately match people to their natal charts. For our primary analysis, we excluded anyone who reported no prior astrology experience, as well as anyone who believed they would not do better than random guessing at the task of matching people to their astrological charts. The 152 astrologers largely believed that they were capable of doing this task with accuracy well above chance, whereas a random guesser would, on average, only correctly answer 2.4 questions out of 12 astrologers with the least experience thought that they had correctly answered 5 charts after completing the study tasks, and those with the most astrology expertise believe that they had gotten 10 right. Despite their degree of confidence in their performance, astrologers as a group perform no better than chance. That is so. From what I understand about that, astrologers as a group, meaning I'm assuming somewhere between expert or professional, but that might be like a conglomerate. That is, their distribution of results closely resembled what you would see if they had all been guessing at random, and the number of charts they matched correctly on average was not statistically significant. Statistically significantly different than random guessing either. Not a single astrologer got more than 5 out of 12 answers correct. That doesn't surprise me. It was fucking hard. It was legitimately hard. I thought I was going to crush it, and then I was getting into it. I was like, fuck. And I'll show you why. Even though after completing the task, more than half the astrologers believed that they had gotten more than 5 answers correct. More experience with astrology had no statistically significant association with better performance, and the astrologers with the most experience didn't do any better than the rest. So that to me is also a key indicator of why I think the test, like the results would show, if the results show this, I think it speaks more to the test not being all that better. Like, and I'll again, once we actually look at the questions, I think it'll make more sense, but I do want to just look at this. If astrologers as a group had been able to do even slightly better than chance, getting at least 22% of questions right on average compared to random guessing, which would yield 20% correct, this study design would have supported the conclusion that astrology works. But as it turned out, astrologers in the study performed in a manner statistically indistinguishable from random guessing. When I show you the questions, part of it was ended up coming down to guess, because it's like they gave you 5 charts to choose from, and 3 of the charts were almost exactly identical. And so it was like, there was always one that was like, it's probably not that one. But then there was 3 where it'd be like the same sun rising and the same like Venus-Mars situation, but a different moon and Saturn. And it was just kind of like, and it would be consistent through there where, and you only get so many questions. Like my issue with the study really was, and again, I'm going to show you guys this, the questions that they asked the people were both a little bit shallow. They were much more in depth than I was expecting, but they were shallow, and the answers weren't good enough that they gave them. Like, if you've ever done a consultation with me, and I'm like, hey, what happened to you in spring of 2017? You go like, I don't remember. I'm like, yeah, like I think something like this happened, and then something would come up. The way I would analogize this study is it's very similar to like dating apps don't work because, I mean, there's a lot of reasons dating apps don't work, but it's like trying to say, based off of someone's own input into their bio on their Tinder or their Bumble account and their pictures, could you guess who your best mate would be? And it's like, no, like they're only posting like what they think they know and not the parts of themselves that they don't know. It was really similar to like, again, like, you know, people try to find, you know, pick their best partners through looking at like dating apps, and we find out it didn't work. It's like, yeah, well, dating apps are only going to give you so much information. Like you literally need to go and have a date with the person and have an experience with the person. And so, and again, I'll show you that. Despite astrologers' belief that they were performing well in the task, there was little agreement among astrologers about which natal chart belonged to each study subject. And you'll see why. Like, they set this, again, it was really fucking hard, which I will give them, like, and I'm not bashing this at all. Like, I think it's really fucking cool that I've never heard of clearthinking.org, that they offered something like this. And so I'm not bashing them. I don't think there was anything disingenuous about it. It just wasn't done well, and it was fucking hard in a way that wasn't like, oh, like, well, it should be hard, like to challenge if an astrologer is good. It's like, no, it wasn't necessarily, there wasn't enough data for the astrologer to work with, and there were too many, so for example, on this Tumblr post, someone said a really good thing. They said, this test seems extremely difficult, and it was. Like, I would just think you would have to process a lot of info to get this correct 6 to 12 times in a row. And you did. We're going to show you. Also, I wish the tests were backwards. Like, you get the real chart and they have to select the right sets of traits because that's actually how it's practiced. That's what I was saying, because it's like they would interview someone and ask kind of like specific questions, but the people who answered them really didn't give you that much of an answer. And then they would give you like 3 to 4 charts that were almost exactly identical, where I'm like, I don't have enough information, but based off this and, you know, whatever else, I'm just going to try this answer. Astrologers help design the test, so I guess it's something they think they should be able to do, but it's not what I'm looking for from astrologers. And I think that's a really good point too. It's This is a test I keep seeing on. I had a stalker Twitter account just to see what was going on there, and I had to delete it again because I hate Twitter. But I saw there's an astrologer on there that's doing like something similar to this, where you're like, here's whatever info, guess whose chart it is, and that's fun. Like I did learn a lot doing this study, but I just don't think it's good enough to say whether or not astrology is real. So how do you test a claim scientifically? Before we get into the details of our astrological chart studies, let's start talking about how to test, make the claim precise. Usually an ambiguous claim can be tested. For instance, your month of birth says a lot about you, isn't testable. But saying people born in February are more empathetic than those that are born in months. Choose a measurement to test the claim. You must find something you can measure. Blah, 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 blah. All right, so how do we apply the scientific methods to astrology? To apply scientific methods to astrology, we first have to figure out what astrology claims. Since there were many types of astrologers making somewhat different claims, it helps to focus on aspects that are core to many types of astrology. One of the most fundamental claims that astrology makes is a person's natal chart reflecting the positions of the celestial bodies at the time of birth offers insights about that person's character or life. If you're curious what natal charts look like, here's an example in two popular styles known as Placidus or whole sign. And they did give you the option to look at both Placidus and whole sign, which was nice. But again, you have 5 options. You're looking at 10 fucking charts. It is a fucking lot of shit to process. If you've never seen, let's see, how did our test for astrologers work? Our test for astrologers consists of 12 multiple choice questions. For each, we show lots of information about one real person's life. 50 such pieces of information, including some basic factual information like gender and education. That does not help whatsoever. Distinguishing between a guy and a girl's chart really doesn't, there's nothing for me there. As well as a lot of answers to open-ended questions such as how they would describe their personality. Okay, that's the biggest issue right there. Again, when we come back to the Tinder idea, I'm assuming it's the same way for girls, but I'm a guy, so it's only my experiences. Like girls would describe themselves as great magical people with no problems, and then you meet them and talk to them, and you're like, oh boy. So I didn't care for that. Like, I don't think that's the job of an astrologer, or like you telling me about your personality is not what helps. What their brief life story is, that was good. However, I think what they did was they sent out like an email or like you type something out. Because there was the one chart, I feel like I guessed correctly, and I'm going to have to look at it. I mean, it was like, there was all these other chart options, and then this one chart option was like all Sag and Pisces, and this guy like went on a tour with fish. He was like into psychedelics, and he worked in, big tech, and then changed his life, and he was just typing and typing. I mean, it was just these big life stories, and I'm pretty sure it was like, I think it's this fucking guy. How lucky or unlucky feel they've been, that's another thing. That doesn't give me anything. By the way, like, and again, what I'm saying right now is very anecdotal, but like half of you are really lucky, but a lot of you would also say that you're not lucky. It's one of those things where this doesn't give me any information based off the chart. What their home life was like growing up, those ones were more helpful, and so on. These questions were chosen by asking astrologers what they would ask someone if they wanted to be able to accurately guess this person's astrological chart. Here are a few examples of a few of the 50 pieces of information we provided. Okay, so let's actually look at this. Okay, gender, woman, education, completed MD professional degree. That's somewhat helpful. I would really wish there were some things that like, some people were very specific about the work, and then like what this was like not helpful. Relationship status, committed relationship but not married. That doesn't help me at all. Based like with astrology, it's more so like I could probably be better at saying like where you met your partner, describing your partner, what your partner's going through. But like at that moment of asking committed relationship but not married, it doesn't tell me much. You know what I mean? Someone can have Saturn in the 7th house and be married for 30 years. But they could also have Saturn in the 7th house and, literally not be married whatsoever. So it's just, this didn't give me anything. Times married 0. It's 2024. This 0 or 3, it doesn't matter. Hours of work per week, 40, doesn't help me whatsoever. So they did do this where they kind of went through the houses to ask each question. But look how short these responses are. These responses aren't really that in depth. So how would you describe your personality? I'm very curious about the world. I love traveling and exploring. I try to be kind and gentle. Okay. Like, I guess that's good, but I feel like that would be 40% of what people would ask. What's most unusual or striking about your physical appearance making you stand out? I did like that. I thought that was a good question because when I did the STA's horary class, a lot of that was like pretty much racial profiling based off the ascendant and stuff like that. So I had a little bit of expertise there. I think I'm quite the plain Jane, maybe more muscular than the average person. So I did like that. But again, it's one of those things where if they had a picture of the person, I feel like having a picture of the person would be way easier too. What do you tend to get angry or aggressive about, if anything? Do you easily move past or tend to hold a grudge? I get upset when people are acting unreasonably or unfounded beliefs choose to believe. I remember this question. I did like this question because it's kind of like that would give us insight into their Mars or something like that. Values and resources, not including a computer or smartphone. Which material do you valued the most? My teddy bear. Okay. Like, again, so far we're like 4 questions deep and I still haven't really gotten anything that's like, for example, like, let me pull up the questions in a minute, but let me see this. Besides necessities, what do you tend to spend your money on? Or are you interested in luxury goods like cars, watches, jewelry? See, I love nice clothes, watches, and jewelry, but I don't buy anything too often. I mostly spend my money on traveling. That was a key indicator. I think for this girl, if I remember this person's chart right, let's actually just start. Let's just do next. Let's just do that. Let's just do that. Oh, I don't want to skew it. Okay, well, let's just look at this. Oh, gosh, having a fever sucks. It's like 65 degrees in my house, and I feel like I'm on fire. Okay, so after showing this information about a study subject, we showed each astrologer 5 astrological charts. 5 is kind of a fucking lot. Only one of these is the real natal chart of that person based on their birth date, time, and location. And the other 4 are decoy charts that were generated based on random dates, times, and locations. That was hard to also believe because oftentimes 2 to 3 of the charts were almost identical. Like it was the same month and year, but like a slightly different day. And again, at the same time, that happened a lot where it wasn't like, for example, if it was 3 charts and there was one that was correct and the other 2 were like, again, legitimately randomly generated, then I would probably have an easier time. But a lot of these charts were very similar. Here's an example of the decision of the astrologers had to make. So again, the other thing is like you had to like, again, do this drop down box thing and then pick which chart from there. So it was just like what this Tumblr comment said. It was a lot of processing information that was not really, again, I will give them credit that it was fucking hard, but I also think it was hard in a way that wasn't useful. So like here's a chart example. I think for the woman that was like, I like to spend my money on traveling, I think she had like Venus ruling her second house of Libra in Taurus in the 9th house. I think that was the situation. Yeah, I think that was the situation. And that's the one that I think I ended up falling back to because I remember that question actually helping me a lot. But like, let's look at some of these charts. So there's this one. Oh yeah, this one. It's chart B. I thought it was chart B because of she's like, I like to spend money on watches and traveling. Right here. And she had Venus, her 9th ruler in the 2nd. So I was like, okay, I think that's it. Is this okay? Oh, okay. Let's go back. Okay. If astrologers were randomly guessing, i.e. they had no skill whatsoever, they would get 20% of the questions correct, an average of 2.4 out of 12. If on average astrologers can get at least, say, 33% correct, 4 out of 12, they would provide very strong evidence that astrology works. I got 4 out of 12. In fact, let me look this up before I just pull up my email for everyone to see. Clear thinking. That's really hard to say. Let's see. Let me click my results. Bro, being sick sucks. I hate having a fever. All right, we'll let that load and we'll keep talking. And even if most astrologers don't do better than chance, but just one astrologer can at least get 11 out of 12 right, that would provide very strong evidence that the astrologer has genuine skill. But no, it won't, because I got 4 out of 12 right. I got 4 out of 12 right. Oh, hold on. The thing is, if it was like, again, the way that I would do these questions, like I've thought about if I were to do a study for astrology, how would I do it? And what I would probably have people do is sit face to face with someone. Like, one of the things that I don't know for sure, they might have talked about this, but I don't know, but like, how accurate is this birth chart? Is this a birth certificate time? Is the number one thing I would ask. Someone else on this Tumblr post also mentioned something about pretty much what they said. A lot of these people were talking shit, but what they said was they weren't vetting whether or not these were professional astrologers or not. Like, I mean, I got an email for it, so they were doing some sort of research and found me. But again, what I don't like about this premise is, it's like, and if most astrologers don't do better chance, but just one astrologer can get 11-10, that would provide very strong evidence that the astrologer has genuine skill. That is being, if the study is set up correctly. And the way that, again, let's just go ahead and, you know what, let's just fuck up the study thing. I'm just going to fuck with it anyway. Let's say total believer, let's say 11 out of 12 correct. Okay, so next. I don't even know what the hell this is for. Oh, what event this is? Let's see. Saturn, Uranus. I think this was the Tiananmen Square massacre. It wasn't Chernobyl. It wasn't. It was the fall. It's either the fall of the Berlin Wall or Tiananmen Square massacre. Oh, this is what is that's not the right test. Okay. Oh, I think this is the practice test, so I can't actually look at the other one. But the point I'm trying to make right here is these questions just didn't give me, like, I wanted to ask more, and it's all that I had, and I don't really think that's the point of astrology. Okay, that doesn't show me anything. To increase interest in participation, we offered $1,000. That was really cool. 25% of those astrological experience believed they would win this prize. And right after finishing the challenge, 15% believed that they had done well enough to win the prize. What do we mean by astrologer? 328 participants took our test, including 152 astrologers. We defined an astrologer for these analyses as a participant with at least some astrology experience who also predicted just before starting the task. They predicted, that's a kind of a funny jab. Just before starting the task, but after the study was explained to them that they would perform better than chance, that they would get at least 3 out of 12 questions correct. For reasons, these exclusion criteria are because if someone doesn't have astrological experience, then their performance on the test obviously says nothing about astrology. We recruited astrologers through a variety of methods. Let's see. We reached out to dozens of notable, well-trusted, and influential astrologers, telling them about the project and asking. We promoted a challenge to 200,000 newsletter subscribers as well as on. Wow. What were the results? Let's see. Did astrologers do better than chance? No, astrologers did not perform better than chance. The statistical test shows no statistically significant difference between astrologer performance and what would be expected from random guessing. Astrologers on average got 2.49 questions correct out of 12 with a 95% confidence interval. That is funny. Of 2.29 to 2.7. This is extremely close to the 2.4 correct answers we would expect from purely random guessing. And 2.49 lies within the confidence interval. Average number of answer the astrologers got correct, 2.49. So I did better than the average. 95% confidence interval for mean of correct answers, two-tailed T-vest p-value, standard, blah, blah, blah. The following chart compares the actual performance of astrologers to what would be expected from random guessing. It shows the percentage of astrologers who got each number of correct answers from 0 to 12 as blue bars. The expected percentage of astrologers were just guessing randomly as green line. Okay. So I did pretty good. No one else got 4 to 5. And again, I think this would be my issue with this is if the study, I don't want to say is designed to fail. Like, again, I know a little bit about how studies are supposed to be done. I'm not like a scientific expert, but I wish there was more information on who these people were and better asked questions. Seeing a picture of them would help. I also think how that one person said, if it was like, hey, here's the chart, put the person to that chart, that might be better. And what I think this says is, oh, it's not that astrologers can't get anything right. I think that I would want 2 or 3 more studies to be laid out in like aggregate. You know what I mean? Meaning like another study or 2 that are set up differently to see if we get the same results. Because I would almost guarantee if there weren't 5 charts and 2 to 3 of those charts weren't extremely similar. And again, maybe that's just me asking for it to be too easy. But there was a lot of times that like 3 of the charts were like, these are like fucking literally the same in a lot of respects. And there's not enough data to weed through that. Does that make sense? Like, now again, if I had 30 minutes to spend with each person and I was able to ask them, I think I would have been able to perform a lot better. But I only had what I had. And then so I'm working with like limited data to work from. And then the charts that they gave me weren't like, it wasn't just super obvious which one it was. It was like, okay, there's at least 2 to 3 here that I had to really, really go through. And if I had more data or if I had an opportunity to extract more information, I think it would be a lot easier to ace. But I think, again, my issue with this data is I think it tells a little bit more about like the fact that we go to this image, in my opinion, speaks more to like that was not like you would see something, in my opinion, of like, for example, like I have little experience being low and then like I'm a world-class expert at least being higher. This to me that's a false reading of something. Like something wasn't done right here. And again, maybe I'm being biased because I took it and I got 4 out of 12. Let's see how many percentage of astrologers that got this many correct. So I was in 17.1 expected percent if they had no skill and we're guessing it all 13. Okay, so I did above average. That's all. I don't want to say that's all I care about, but like I think the other hard part too is like I'm an astrologist, so I have a bias towards it, right? I've done enough consultations with people. And you could see it in my Trustpilot reviews. I wish I need to be better about saving emails of like client responses, but like I've gotten a lot of shit right. Like it's not like I think I would have a lot more questions about astrology if there wasn't something right about it. Like I'm typically a pretty skeptical person about most things. But that's where it's like that's where again it's a little bit more challenging to just sit here and be like, let me give my critique. I have my own bias. I just think I should have performed better. And I think a lot of that I would have performed better had I had more data, more time, not time on the test. It took me like 3 hours to do it. But more data on the person and asking better questions because it looks like someone just filled out a form rather than like, if these were 6 astrologers that helped develop this, I really wish they would have sat down on like a phone call and really got into these questions because it's one of those things where I don't have like enough information to work off of. And then you've given me like 2 to 3 charts that are like literally like, I don't believe them when they say that they were randomly generated because every single fucking chart, every single question had charts that were literally almost exactly the same. And that tells you something that like, oh, it's one of those 3, but I didn't have any fucking data to weed that out. So that's what made this really hard. Did astrologers with more experience believe they would perform better? Yeah, I would guess. Average number of questions they believe they would get right before the challenge. Average number of questions. Okay, so just about the same. Average number of questions they believe they would get right. Average number. Okay. If we consider all participants in our study who said that they had at least a little astrological experience, including those who didn't believe they would do better than chance, we see that before starting, at least 61% of these participants believed they would get at least 6 questions right. And right after finishing the test, 51% they had gotten. Anyway, did astrologers with more experience actually perform better with less experience? Experience level did not correlate with improved performance. For example, astrologers that reported having little experience got an average of 2.3 questions right, while self-defined world-class experts just got 2.2 questions right. That is really funny. But again, I think the other thing is because they just sent out a mass email, I really wish they would have done vetting. And like, for example, I chose world-class expert on mine. I either did that or I did one of these 2. I'm pretty sure I did world-class expert because I'm just a Leo, and that's probably what I'm going to choose anyway. But I wish they would have put those people in those boxes for them because I do wonder how much that skewed the data. The best performing group were those with the second lowest amount of experience, i.e. those reported being inexperienced amateur. They got 2.7 right, which was not statistically significant different from random chance. Yeah, again, this is where I look at this as like, I wish they would do more studies and do them differently and see if they get this result time after time again. That would make me feel a lot more confident in like the way that they're doing it. It would make me, I don't want to say less confident in astrology, but it'd make me more confident of like, okay, there's something going on here. But this to me is like, no, I wonder how many people thought it was really like, I'm going to assume again, I would recommend taking it and let me know in the comments how fucking hard it is. Cause it was fucking hard. It was hard. I'm not going to lie. And I appreciated about it, but it was to a degree of which it's like, I don't know how well I was going to perform. I thought, cause again, it took me 3 hours. I sat with each one and really worked with the data. And so I thought I got more right than I did because of that, but it was hard. How did performance vary based on prior experience with specific types of astrology? Oh, this is an interesting question. At the start of the challenge, we asked participants to indicate which types of astrology, Western, Chinese, traditional, that they were experienced with. The answers were in checkbox format, allowing them to select multiple options. After collecting the data, we analyzed whether astrologers reporting experience in different types of astrology achieved different results. Considering each group independently, participants with experiences in Hellenistic astrology got 2.9 correct answers on average, the most correct of any group. Ha 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 ha! That's funny. With a p-value of 0.036 and a two-tailed t-test and 0.0178 and a one-tailed t-test relative to the 2.4 questions right expected from random guessing. None of the other astrology types showed statistically significant results that positively differ than random guessing. So Hellenistic astrology for the win. And again, I think that would be another thing is doing people with like Hellenistic ancient background. So for example, let's just look at this. Let me finish this. Since we tested 20 hypotheses, one for each with these 20 types of astrology, we would expect it to have one false positive on average meeting. P is less than 0.05 threshold. If we correct for the number of hypotheses tested, we find that none of the groups are statistically significantly different from guessing at random. After just, and there was a couple, I think there was maybe one or two I just fucking guessed because it was fucking hard. After adjusting for 20 hypotheses with a Bonferroni correction, the one-tailed p-value for Hellenistic astrology increased to 0.356, indicating no statistically significant deviation from random guessing. Note that each participant could indicate being experienced with more than one type of astrology, so the same participant can appear in more than one group. Okay, so Hellenistic, horary. Let's look at the bottom. Egyptian. Who knows Egyptian astrology? What was the highest number? 29, 45 psychological, Western 131. Yeah, I think the other part too is when you say Western and evolutionary and like psychological, there's not much there. And why is degree theory on here? Take this off. What IJ did to the astrology community, like get this degree theory trash off of here. Anyway, do astrologers at least agree with each other? Each graph in the following chart represents, this will be an interesting question. Each graph in the following chart represents a different question, 1 through 12, in the astrology test, with the correct answer indicated in blue. The bar shows the percentage of astrologers who chose each option, A through E, for that question. If astrologers strongly agreed with each other, we would expect to see one bar that is much higher than the others in each graph, indicating a consensus. However, what we actually see is a wide distribution of answers given across most questions. In most cases, 9 out of 12, the correct answer in blue is not even the most commonly chosen option. There is a general lack of agreement among astrologers about which chart belongs to which person. Yeah, that's because again, this reminds me of like when I go out and I'm like downtown drinking at a bar and someone finds out I'm an astrologer, they go, guess my sign. It's like, I'm not a psychic. My job is to not guess your sign. Like, that's not what I do. I don't also look at 6 different charts with vague questions that don't provide a lot of data and figure out who it is. And I wish too, a big way that I figure out how a chart works is using annual perfections. So I wish they would have went through annual perfections with those people and be like, what happened when you were 9 years old? What happened when you were 8 years old or 10 or 33 or whatever it was? All right, so correct one was A, correct one was D, correct one was D, B, okay. See, that's what's more interesting here is I would be more curious about why this results are the way that they are. Like in this scenario, was D and B very, very similar? And that people just went, you know what, I think it's D. That would be my question. To assess the level of agreement among astrologers, we calculated the average pairwise agreement rate for different experience levels. This rate represents the percentage of questions for which 2 randomly selected participants in each group gave the same answer. The agreement rate among astrologers are very low, ranging from about, yeah, no kidding. Boy, talk to any astrologer and ask what they agree about, ranging from 21 to 28% depending on experience level. This suggests that there's little consensus among astrologers. Yeah. And it's because no one, and again, at least we have some sort of scientific data being happening here. But the big thing is people aren't interested in astrology. If more people were interested in astrology that came from a scientific background, we would have a lot more consensus. But there's so many different backgrounds, and like, again, you're going to meet your twin flame kind of astrology that there's no point into looking at consensus. Like, there's so much fluff in astrology because the most brilliant minds for thousands of years were the only ones that practice it. And then it got thrown in the trash. And then everyone with only a brain stem started picking it up and putting all these other things to it, to where it's so muddy. Like the waters are so muddied, it would take a long time to unmuddy those waters. Average pairwise agreement rate by astrology experience, pair rate. So, okay, that's interesting. I'm a world-class expert, and most of them, at least that's around like what, 28%? Yeah, 28% of the world-class people were in agreement. That's really interesting to me. So that tells me a little bit more about, like, again, the answers that they have, and I would be more interested to see which ones were correct versus which ones. Or like, for example, look at number, is it 11 here? Yeah. Why is D and E so highly voted versus C if C is the correct one? Let's see what their limitations are. Even though we did not observe evidence of skill shut up, of 152 astrologers, that's really funny to say. This doesn't rule out the possibility that a skilled astrologer might exist. However, if this skill exists at all, our study suggests it's rare and the greater skepticism is warranted towards the claim of skill at reading astrological charts. Inadequacy of task for astrologers. It's possible that our task cannot be done by astrologers, even if it was astrology has merit. Exactly. To address this concern, we included in our analysis only the participants who believe their performance would exceed random chance. That's not what that means, though. It's possible that our task cannot be done by astrologers, even if astrology has merit. To address this concern, we included in our analysis only the participants who believe their performance would exceed random chances. Those are two different things. You're saying, yeah, our test might actually just be impossible to do, but we asked people if they think that they can do it, and they said that they could. And I got that question before I did like the thing. We also developed the study design with the help of astrologers. I think they were coming from a good place, but I also think I've been doing this for a long time. I have a document somewhere on my computer that lists out exactly how I would do a double-blinded, randomly controlled trial of astrology. Like, this is not how I would do it whatsoever. And focus on a central claim of astrology, that astrological charts can reveal insights about a person's life or character. The other part of that is that's a vague statement. It can reveal insights about a person's character and life. I wouldn't start off with that question. Because astrology is so encompassing, I would start with very specific, lighthearted questions. Like, for example, can astrology describe your relationship with your mother? Like something like, okay, we just focus on the moon, we just focus on the 4th house, or whatever it is, something along those lines. Can it describe when you get married or what your partner looks like? Something like that, versus being like, well, can it just reveal anything about anybody? And it's like, well, I don't know. I just don't necessarily agree with that. By the way, clear thinking, if you're watching this, I would love to help in any sort of capacity to redo this. Additionally, astrologers largely believe that they had performed well in our study even after they had finished. I think indicating a confidence in their skills at these tasks, whether or not the task truly measured their abilities accurately. That was the other thing, was because I had spent so much time on it, and because I thought I was going to just be able to kind of whiz through it in like 30, 45 minutes. I spent 3 fucking hours on it, maybe even more. And I thought because I did that, I was a lot better. I was a lot more surprised at my results, but I was shocked, but not surprised is probably like more like, whoa, like I got way less wrong, but I'm like, oh, that makes sense because it was fucking hard. It was super hard to do. We might not have given astrologers the right or enough information to accurately match. Yes, that's the issue with this. There was not enough data whatsoever. To address this, we formulated questions for the anonymous study subjects based on the feedback from astrologers, asking what questions they would. Who are these astrologers that you're working with? Are these the world-class expert astrologers? How many years do they have experience? How many charts have they read for? Like, that's my, like, okay, you seek help from astrology, but like, again, who's vetting of who's an astrologer here? And also structured the topics of the questions based on the 12 astrological houses. Yes, while I appreciated that, there was limitations to it. Like, I would have rather have done, for example, rather than being like, what is the most valuable object you have? I would literally be like, what's your relationship with money and income? Or, for example, what I would rather have do is those astrologers that are asking the questions have the chart in front of them. And let's say, like, my second ruler is in the 5th house, being like, oh, why do you, not only like, what is the most valuable thing that you have, but like asking more questions that are geared towards that chart rather than just plain Jane questions. We also provided a very large number of questions responses for each study, i.e. the responses to 44 different questions to help astrologers have enough information. The number of questions does not mean that the quality of the questions are better. The quality of the questions were not as good. And more so, I would actually probably argue, the quality of the answers were trash. Like, again, it's like, are you going to expect someone on Tinder to answer truthfully about their personality? No, you're not. That was kind of my thing with it of like, it really is just kind of, and like most of them were 2 sentences. There was one guy that like wrote paragraphs for everything. And that was the one that I was like, fuck, I think I know which one it is. Charts too similar to each other. Okay, here we go. They're addressing all my problems. Thank God. And I didn't read this article until I did this video, so that's why I'm having this reaction. Perhaps the charts we showed were too similar to each other in each round. And again, when they said we did it randomly, I didn't believe that because there were so many charts that were that were like literally so close to each other without any sort of additional clarification on things to where it's like, well, it really could be any of these. That is, perhaps the decoy charts were too similar to the correct answer. To help avoid this, we made sure that the 5 charts shown in each question all differed from each other in both sun sign and moon signs. What is, no. No, you can't do that because you said that, oh, you can't just look at someone's sun sign and predict stuff. So you're just changing your sun and your moon, but people had the same Saturn, Jupiter, Mercury, Venus, Mars, and rising. That doesn't help me at all. And that's not true because I know for a fact there was questions that had the same sun sign. That is not a good factor. Like it needs to be like at least 3 to 4 planets different or something like that, or at least different ascendant signs. But they were so, like, I'm telling you, go take the test. It's clearthinking.org/astrology test or astrology challenge. They're fucking hard. And I don't think the idea of like, oh, well, we changed the sun and the moon. If you already said in the beginning of the study that the sun is not a good enough, a basis to judge someone's life off of, then why are you using that as the basis of making it relatively different? It just doesn't make sense to me. As noted, astrologers largely believe that they had done better than chance at the task after completing it, which I did, showing that they believed that they had sufficient information showing that they believed they had sufficient information about the charts were successfully different from each other. There was no place to put that. There was no place to be like, oh, like, I wish there was like way more in-depth stuff. And again, where I come from is, and this is just me saying it, I thought I did better because I spent so much time doing it and I like fucking went into these charts. But again, at the end of the day, it was really like, it was deductive reasoning of like, it's not this one, it's not this one. It's probably one of these two because of whatever random question that gave me some insight. I just chose one over the other. Like there was only one chart that I was like, it's fucking this guy. And I'm going to double check if I got that one right. Participant skill inadequacy. It's possible that astrologers who participated in our study were unskilled. To help mitigate this, we reached out to a dozen well-known and influential astrologers when the study began, inviting them to participate. While we had more participants with lower experience than higher experience, we did have highly experienced astrologers in our study, and the astrologers with greater experience did not outperform the less experienced astrologers. Notably, not one of the 152 scored more than 5 out of 12 questions. It doesn't surprise me. Limitation to Western astrology. Ooh, what's this? We only tested Western astrologers using Placidus and our whole sign house, the 2 most popular. So we can't rule out the possibility that other Vedic Chinese are more accurate and the other ways of representing. Yeah. Limitations on a single study. As always, no single study is definitive. We designed our study with the aim of conducting a fair test of astrology, aiming to design to show support if astrology is valid and to show a lack of support if astrology is not. If astrology works to do what it claims. And again, that's where I would disagree on what they're saying astrology claims, because in order to study it, because it's so vague, Like astrology claims to show you all types of things. And like you should be studying, or at least if there was going to be a study, there should be like, well, there's at least this claim. Let's study just this one thing. Like if all these charts were like based off of like their relationship to their parents, or describe their living situation, or again, describing their body or what they might look like, I think that would be an easier time to show that. We want to believe that we did our best to have our study reflect a genuine. And again, I know I'm talking shit here. I'm not. I think these people, and again, you have to understand, most people are in this to like debunk astrology for nefarious purposes, and they might, but I think they tried to do this in a genuine manner that I respect. I just don't think it was done well enough. And if they do another test, like I think this is good data to work off of, but I would be more curious about the next test that they do of having multiple different, like if they're going to do another study, having 2 to 3 studies to choose from that they think would actually, like, again, they're like, the limitations were the charts were too similar. And I don't think their tool for making them not similar, of just a different sun and moon, really helped. Because if it's the same rising and every fucking other planet is the same, sun and moon ain't going to tell you that much difference. And again, how much of that you're getting from the person that they're interviewing, I think is difficult. Conclusion, we aim to design a rigorous test of one of the most fundamental claims of astrology, that a person's astral chart natal can be used to glean insights about the person's character of life or life. We conducted this test, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so intercept correlation. Here's some more data stuff. In order for the study to come out in favor of astrology, astrologers would only have to get at least 23% of questions right on average, just barely above the rate of random guessing. What did I get? I think I got 28. Oh, I argued. I said right after the challenge, you believed you got 9 questions right. So I think I said 9. Yeah. So anyway, that's my thoughts about this. I really want you guys to take it. It took me a long time, so definitely carve out some time for it, or just blast through it. It was really hard. If the people are clear thinking or watching this, hit me up. I would love to actually help design a different one, because my experience was like the charts were really fucking similar and I didn't have enough data, and a lot of it ended up being guessing. There was only one chart that I was like, it's this fucker right here. And let me see if I can pull it up, because it's really funny. Review each question and answer. It was like question number 10 or something like that. Oh, it was question 11. Oh, I got it wrong? What? I got question 11 wrong? Which fucking one was it? Correct answer is option C, and I did D? Wow, really? And I got that one wrong. Well, I really thought it was D, but anyway. So I don't really I appreciate this company or this group doing this. It was fun, it was challenging, and I appreciated about it. Like, it was much harder than I was anticipating, but it was much harder in a way where I would be more curious if they did a second or a third one and how they would set that up. And again, if you're watching this, like, I have a way better way to do this. It was just too general. I didn't think I got enough data from each person. And a lot of the charts were really similar. So that didn't help either. But anyway, let me know what your guys' thoughts are in the comments below about this. And thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.